Hello and welcome back to the Modern Leader Way, where I'm joined today by the lovely Claire Nolan. Hi, Claire.
Hey, Em.
Thanks for joining me. Claire and I reconnected after I'd left, and I think because we crossed over, didn't we? You came back from Australia as I was leaving Swiss Re, and I think we worked out that we were someone else's leaving do that we connected again, and and then we reconnected at another leaving do more recently, and I had a great conversation with you. Loved talking to you and talking all things power of coaching and leadership and all the things. So I invited you on, and you very graciously accepted the invite, even though I know it's not the normal kind of thing that you find yourself doing in your role as head of claims and underwriting for UK and Ireland at Swiss Re. So thank you for saying yes and for being here. Do you want to give a brief introduction to who you are and what you're doing now in the world of reinsurance?
Yes, I can. And maybe just very quickly before I do that, I love how you say you graciously accepted. I think I actually said to you, if I think about this, I will say no. So I won't think about it, and therefore the answer is yes. So maybe that's a point for discussion later. But yes, so I am currently, as you said, I my title is head of claims and underwriting, but I guess I would describe that as I lead a team here of about little over 50 people, and it's a multidisciplinary team, so different technical backgrounds and professional skills. And our role obviously is kind of as people maybe would expect, dual focus. So we have a very client facing angle about what we do. So we're here to really work with our clients to help manage their insurance portfolios. But equally, I'd say certainly for me, my kind of the bigger component of my role is that leading the team and supporting the individuals within it. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I love that. And for anyone listening who's not familiar with reinsurance, you possibly will be now because I've probably talked about it enough. But so your clients are insurance companies, right? So yeah,
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. So obviously we detect an accent there. I would love to know how you ended up in Australia and back in the UK and all that stuff. Why don't you just take us back to what was childhood like for Claire? What did you want to do growing up with your work in the world? And yeah, sort of start back there.
Yeah, so now this is where we're going to test how honest I'm going to be, right? Because this is where I go, oh, how much do you share? I guess I have my professional view of how I answer this question, but let's go with the right. Let's go with the non-professional view
Go for it.
a little bit more on this side. So, grew up in Ireland, and the first thing I remember wanting to do for a career was I wanted to be an Olympic show jumper. That was what I wanted to be, which probably now in hindsight, when you reflect, I also go, oh wow, I was aiming very high, wasn't I? I didn't just want to be, yeah, I didn't just want to be like, I want to do something with horses. I was like, I want to be an Olympic show jumper.
Love that.
Um, that changed slightly when I decided actually my social time was better spent with boys and friends than horse riding. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, that also probably says something about me as a teenager.
Happens to the best of us.
So this is a bit that doesn't come out when I do my interviews in work, right? Um, but I always, yeah, I came from I was always going to have a job, always going to have a profession. Didn't really have a path beyond kind of, I didn't really have a direct path. I just wanted to, I guess I was always kind of, my mom was an accountant. I thought, oh, I'll do something with numbers because I was doing a lot of so our equivalent of A level. So my leaving cert, I was doing a lot of physics, maths, the kind of analytical, structured subjects. But really, at the same time, I think I kind of knew. Don't know that really motivates me. I felt like it was a good thing to do. It was a solid thing to do. But like I said, I had already by then kind of I was like, I like people. I like hanging around with people, right? So I really applied for a dual degree in accounting, but and HR because I thought, oh, this is going to be a nice way to do something that's practical and solid, but also a bit of people. I don't
Nice.
think I was brave enough to think that I could do something like philosophy or psychology, right? I still felt like, oh, it has to be something proper, right? So yeah, I applied for that. then I started working actually in like part-time I got a part-time role in an accountant during summer jobs, and actually very quickly we're like, I do not want to do this. This is not me. So had a bit of a don't really know, same thing. What am I going to do? So applied for an internship at a bank, got accepted into that, but actually, and this is one of those you kind of think how things change your lives, right? So they came back to me and they were like, well, you've applied for the internship in the banking side, but we have a very young, recently set up insurance company. And actually, that might be, we've kind of got, if we look at the dynamics of our people, that might be a better fit.
Okay.
So I said, okay. So I went into this insurance company called Arc Life, if anybody is does remember it. They were in Dublin, and it was a super fun environment. I loved it, right? So it was my first professional, like real professional environment that I'd been exposed to. There was the balance of kind of age demographics was really good. And it felt like we were doing a really important job, but in a really fun way. So actually, that was my accidental kind of unplanned hook into the insurance industry. And I've stayed ever since, actually, which people always ask me, well, how come? And I've stayed in life and health. I quickly moved into underwriting, and then basically my career has stepped from there. The move to Australia was, God, when I moved to Australia, I actually moved to Australia twice. That's why I'm pausing. Sorry. I went and did a very quick stint in Australia for the usual backpacker, like 23, 24 for a year or so. Then I came back, and this is again where there's a boy in the story, which I hate to say. The boy I had been dating before I went, he decided, oh, that's a great idea. And now I want to go to Australia. Do you want to go back? And I was like, okay, let's go back. So we went back, but my stipulation that time was I didn't want to be a backpacker. I had done all of that. So if I was going back, I was like, I want to work. I want to have a job, and I want to have some dollars to be able to enjoy
Yes.
Australia. At that stage, I'd had a nice little flavor as a backpacker, but realized, yeah, this might be better if I'm, not eating cereal for dinner. So went, got a job, applied for an underwriting role out in Australia, was hired into an insurer, and then I eventually moved into reinsurance, also in Australia. A couple of years there. I was actually 10 years all up in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I realized from a personal perspective, I was like, okay, this is great. I'm living this fabulous life. My career was progressing, but it started to feel, I don't know, superficial is probably not the right word, but it was just a very easy life. I was single at this point in time. You don't have family that you need to kind of support every day. You're earning, you've got a lot of disposable income. It
Yeah.
kind of just, yeah, it's a very nice life, but at times I was missing a bit of kind of depth. And I think as well as, you age, my anchor points to my family and stuff started to get a bit stronger. Being away in your mid-20s is amazing. Being away in your mid-30s, you kind of start to question things a little bit. So I wanted to move closer, and thankfully Swiss Re were really supportive. And yeah, I was able to kind of have a decision on, did I want to move to Zurich or did I want to move to London? I was coming on my own, and a few people were like, oh, I think you might find Zurich a bit boring. So London might be a bit more exciting. I also love history, architecture, that sort of stuff, which was also what I had started to miss in Australia. So it felt like London was a natural choice. So I came back to London for a role in the UK team. It's actually a new team that they were setting up, which I also was an attraction for the role. So whilst it was still in my existing field, they wanted to create a new team with a different focus. So that actually appealed to me. It was okay, it's something new. It's not just a BAU role. And that's what I moved for. And since then, I guess my roles have just evolved and expanded, either geographically or functionally. Yeah, so that's how I've got to. That's the very long story for how I've got to where
Oh,
I
that's
am.
brilliant. I love it. So I always ask this question, like, was it accidental that you ended up in, especially when it's insurance, right? Not many people choose to go into a role in insurance unless it's like the actuarial route or something like that, very specific. But so yeah, most of the answers is it's accidental. But I love that you had that such a positive experience of it at such
Yeah,
a young age, because oftentimes you go into these insurance companies and it's not young and it's not fresh and new. It's a bit more, let's just say old and grey and
yeah,
established and hard to move through a little bit like sludge. So I'm glad you had that experience. And it seems to be that you've kind of, yeah, you've used all of these kind of natural things that you had that you knew about yourself, kind of going up and going through education and applied it to this. When do you think you kind of saw that you had this like natural ability to lead teams and like go down that route?
yeah. I don't know if I saw I had an ability, but and it was funny. I was chatting to a mentee this morning. Actually, he asked the question about different careers. So I remember kind of processing that choice on, oh, do I want to be a leader or not? So I definitely didn't go, oh, I think I could do that. It was well, to be fair, I'm not that. Yeah, as I say, I kind of doubt myself more than more than back myself sometimes. But I remember thinking I could continue as a really effective solo operator, and I could still contribute really well. And I think I think I was doing a good job, and I had value to deliver. Or I could take an opportunity to try and support others, and try and widen my influence. So for me, it was an opportunity to, okay, I continue to kind of, do you say paddle your own canoe? Is that, I always get these things wrong. I can continue to paddle my own
Yeah.
canoe, or I can, be a cox and help a team and help others. And as a collective, then we would potentially move things faster. Which probably gives you a clue. Yeah, I'm not a status quo person. I like to evolve. I like things to change. So I remember going, "Oh, sugar, what will I do?" And making the choice to put my hand up for a uh, line manager, team manager role. I was very lucky. I had a lot of support because it was my first role, and I came from within the team to lead the team, which,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a lesson in itself, right? Um, but yeah, I had a lot of support, and access to kind of, as you and I discussed, right? I've been lucky to have access to either mentors or coaching.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess it seems to have proved successful, that choice. So my roles have typically involved, yes, I've ended up now bigger teams, bigger teams, bigger teams,
Yeah. Yeah.
as it's gone on.
And what are some of the challenges with that in terms of like on your personal life, your time, all that kind of thing? Has it had a direct correlation with as your role and responsibility has grown that you've had less time, or have you bucked that kind of trend?
Uh, I didn't buck it until I probably recently became more aware of it. So now I'm much more deliberate.
Mhm.
So I would have been you work like you work whatever hours you work. Right? I was never a 9 to 5. I used to be, yeah, quite long hours, and I think that definitely did increase as the responsibility of my role increased. But I guess some of the things I learned along the way was that was me and my own expectations,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I think that's quite a good thing to be conscious of. I'm not saying it's freeing, but it's good to be aware of, right? So, I didn't have a manager saying, Claire, you need to be here all hours, right? And I didn't have the people who worked with me or for me also, needing me to be online 24/7. But for some reason, I kind of was putting that on myself. I felt like I had to be on top of everything. I had to have, yeah, I had to be on top of everything, and I had to be available all the time in case anybody needed me. So that was probably my earlier stages. Um, Thankfully, now I'm a bit more conscious of, A, it's not healthy for me, but B, it's also not healthy then when somebody does call on me, right? I'm either, you know, low energy, impatient, all of those things I don't want to be with people. That comes out when I'm not managing my own boundaries and my own time. And I'm by no means perfect, but every now and then you get a real reminder, you get a real kicker of, oh shit, I was a bit short there with that person.
Mhm.
Why? Yeah, okay, hang on, that's me. That's me being tired, or that's me being pressured. It's nothing to do with that person.
Yeah.
Um, and equally, I had really good reminders. I had some holidays actually earlier in the year. I had a whole month off, and I came back and I immediately realized, when people were coming to me with the stuff that had happened, you could solve things so quickly. Everything seemed so much clearer.
Mm.
Nothing seemed like a big deal. And I was like, okay, so this is what it's like when you're, you know, on your game in terms of your energy and your focus. So, yeah, I think those reminders are good because I definitely see my own responses being less than what I would like if I don't manage my energy. And
Yeah.
that definitely means time at work.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think that's a great example, taking a month off and nothing's fallen apart, right? The
It's good
world
rest.
doesn't end because you've taken that extended time off. So that's a really good reminder that you get to do that for yourself. And there's so many things in there that you mentioned that I want to come back to. So I think one of the things that in my early career, I absolutely went down the same. I always said it wasn't 9 to 5, it was 8 till late, and you switched on for 7 days. And Adam often reminds me of how I used to have my laptop out on a Friday night, catching up on my email inbox, and then Sunday night getting ready for the week, which just is so not the way we want to be doing things. But also a big part of that, I think, was because of some of the role models that I was working with that you
Mm,
look to, and they also seem to be working very, very hard, very long hours, and not wanting to be that kind of role model for other people, right? Not necessarily wanting to be seen as the kind of martyr that's always switched on, but you don't have to. So definitely a piece around wanting to walk the talk and be seen, like setting a good example for that kind of better balance. But then you also said something very interesting around like that doubt that creeps in with every kind of like new challenge, new role, new responsibility, broadening of reach or whatever, that we do put this pressure on ourselves.
mm, mm,
Now we need to like,
mm.
now we need to bring more of ourselves. We need to
Prove
like,
ourselves again, right?
but actually, a lot of the time, a lot of the time I work with women, it is when they are stepping into that kind of next level role. So they are really transitioning from one to the next. And it might be, like you said, going from being in the team, being the technical expert, to now being a leader of a group of experts. And the pressure that we put on ourselves to perform at that next level when actually you've been given the role as a reflection of your ability to be able to perform at that level now. And I think sometimes that just that taking that moment and being able to take a breath and go,
Yeah.
actually, I am deserving of being here. I've earned this already, and I don't actually have to give any more by way of time or being seen to be in the role. It's kind of really critical for us to do that kind of stop check and check ourselves before we get into some really bad habits.
Yeah. And I think for me, one of the good realizations there was I used to confuse confidence with ego.
Mm.
Um, and I think I used to feel like, oh well, if you're feeling confident, well, then you're one of those
Mhm.
a-holes, ego. I had this quite negative kind of connotations,
Yeah.
and whether that's role model, I don't. But then I started to go, but hang on, why? People can be confident, competent, and impressive and not be an ass about it, right? Not have an ego.
Yes.
So I think realizing that as well and going, okay, no, it's okay to feel no, okay, hang on, I am confident in this space, and that's okay to feel confident in this space. I'm
Yes.
not, you know, that isn't about being egotistical, right?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think for me that was a good kind of realization to come to. You could really separate the two.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I also talk a lot about us wearing, especially as women, but I think men do it as well, wearing this mask of fake confidence.
Mm,
So actually showing up almost as that swan on the surface and, the paddling duck underneath the surface, flapping behind the scenes. And a lot of the work that I do now is really helping see what masks we're putting up when we walk
mm,
through the front doors, through the turnstiles and get in the lift, right? What are we putting on that is actually um is masking something that we don't feel is good enough behind that mask? And
yeah.
how can we work on that behind the mask so that we can remove the masks and not need them as we show up? And I think this is so prevalent. And I think we were talking about imposter syndrome over a glass of wine a couple of months ago. And that this is, I've had someone that's an expert on imposter syndrome, and the stats are alarming in terms of like how um I think it's like 60% of women feel like an imposter on the daily, and it's quite close when it comes to men as well. And oftentimes I think there's still a bit of a taboo around this whole showing kind of your true self and perhaps some of
Mm,
those vulnerabilities when it comes to, what might be the reality of what's going on for you at home, dealing with sick parents or going through a breakup, or, all this crap that you carry with you as you move through life. And then you're at work for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, which is a big chunk of that time. It's almost like there's not this allowance for the fact that we have a life that we bring with us to work and we have to leave it at the door. And I wonder if you're sensing a shift at all in terms of like, we talk a lot about mental health these
mm,
days, and there's mental health awareness and all that kind of thing, and there's support groups. Is it lip service, or do you feel a shift in terms of
mm.
like what's happening there?
Ooh, good. Look, my instant gut reaction is it's probably some and some. So I think I have seen, and certainly from myself, right? I am a firm believer in what you just said, right? We are whole people, and actually, we need to be considered as that at all times, right? So when I come to work, I come to work with that backstory. I come with everything. Now that's fine, and sometimes it might not be appropriate for me to kind of put that front and center, but I absolutely believe people should know it, right, and be aware of it. So I think there's definitely more acknowledgement around, yeah, hang on, you're more important. And even, I don't know whether it's, sure, I'm probably not meant to say this to people, but I say it to people quite frequently. You know, at the end of the day, if we choose to work in corporate environment, you're a number on a payroll, right? So let's not forget that. And what is more important is who you are as a person and how you feel and how you make others feel, right? That's important, certainly for me, if I'm leading a team, for the individual, but also for the others in the team, right? Because if I have somebody who's got whatever is going on, well, say, let's use myself as an example, like it's easier. Yeah, so if I come in and I know I'm tired, short, because I've got a load of crap going on, that comes out. I'm short with people,
Yeah.
right? So, unless I can say to people, yeah, guys, I'm actually just knackered this week, at least they can understand and contextualize when I'm short. And they know that's not necessarily what I mean when I say, no, don't bloody do that right now. Let's pause that. So I think there's definitely more openness about we should all be who we are. Um, is that everywhere? I don't know. Right? I don't know. I still think I have conversations. No, I still think I have conversations with individuals, and I go, "Well, did you tell anybody that? Like, did you say that this is what's going on for you behind the scenes?" And people still say no, right? Or people still say no, I was worried, I didn't think, and I go, no, people, again, we are people first,
Mhm.
an employee on a payroll second. So yeah, progress, but always more to do.
Yeah. How do you feel? have you got many young people in your group, in your team? Because I do feel like there's a shift happening with the youngsters coming through. I don't want to call them youngsters in a derogatory way, but the those in their like 20s, let's say, they just seem to have a different view on work ethic. And maybe they look into our generation going, fuck that, I ain't
Not
working
doing
like
that.
that.
Exactly.
And actually it's kind of like I think they get labeled sometimes, and I'm generalizing here, but there's a label of entitlement for this younger generation. But actually, I think they're getting a few things right. Are you seeing any of that in your team?
Yeah, so in the entirety of my team, yeah, it's probably still weighted to longer term professionals, but I definitely have a cohort of, yeah, like the kind of newer. They definitely have different expectations, right? Their approach to the hierarchy and this contract that we have is, between employer and employee is very different. But I'm with you. I think it's refreshingly
Mm,
different, right? So there's less kind of I think there's less, yeah, maybe that, you didn't sign up to a sentence or I have to do everything just to get my paycheck, right? There's definitely more of a, okay, well, hang on, how does that work for me? And what's the development for me? And how would I go from here to there? I think they're much more kind of, do you say advanced? I don't know what the right terminology is, but they're much more progressed in terms of being willing to ask for whatever it is they kind of think they need. I think that's super healthy, right? Again, and it's definitely you, must experience more people who actually all you're trying to do is say to them, well, you realize you should just ask for that. But actually, we have to coach people into that, right?
yeah, absolutely. So
Like,
it's not language they're used to using, and
no,
this
it's different now.
all
Completely
comes
different.
back. Yeah, I'm glad you're seeing it because I do think it's over time it's going to have a knock-on impact on the culture that we live in because it'll have to because the older ones are going to start dropping off and we'll see more of this kind of ethos come in. But when we look at that apologetic nature almost that we come into life with, right? I don't know if you know Dan Ryan. He was my last boss. And he sat me down once and I'd never really heard this feedback before, but he said you need to be less apologetic. And I was like, I couldn't wrap my head around it because it's not like I was sat there saying sorry all the time, but there was something in my behavior, something in the way that I was coming across, something in my language that I was using that was apologizing for me taking up space, for me maybe asking for too much. There is that kind of subtle, subliminal kind of message that's coming across in who we be and how we come across. So there is, I think, comes back to perhaps childhood, how we were brought up. Little girls are to be seen and not heard in our household. It's little simple things like that that have that lasting impact on how you behave when you're a grown up, quite frankly.
It's funny you should say like you weren't apologizing, but I bet you if you were conscious, or because I see this, we use the word sorry
Yeah. Oh yeah.
all the time, right?
Possibly
And
lead
actually,
with
it's
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, Teams chats. I'm often pinging somebody to go, oh hey, did what was the answer to this? And they'll reply with sorry, and I do it all the time. I'm sure I drive them nuts. I go, what are you sorry for? Right?
Nice.
Is we again, why are we I think it's subliminal for many people,
Yeah.
but I think we need to point it out, right? Because we shouldn't go around all day apologizing for who we are or what we may or may not have done, right? Apologies are needed and are welcomed and are a very healthy thing, but not this constant, oh yeah, sorry, sorry, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're apologizing for who we are. We're apologizing for not being enough, for not, doing enough, for
Yeah,
disappointing someone. Like we're almost like putting, it's like that word that sort of makes it acceptable that we haven't,
yeah.
like, we're not enough kind of thing.
Yeah, it does. It assumes something isn't enough, right? And often, again, for me, and sometimes I wonder, is it because of perceived? It's a question coming from the hierarchy, whereas I go, no, I'm just genuinely interested. Like, did that go out, or did we say X, or did we say Y? There's no judgment, or there was no good or bad, there was no par or above par. It was a just an interest. So there's no need to be saying sorry, you know.
Yeah. But that's a good point for everyone listening. Check yourself if you hear
Yeah,
yourself, or if
yeah.
you're going to write sorries, delete that
Love
shit.
it. Yeah.
Stop apologizing. Um, what are some of the other kind of leadership qualities that you do lead with? Because I know when we were chatting, you were talking about like collaboration over competition, which I love because that's more of the kind of feminine leadership qualities that I'm talking about in the modern leader way. What are some other ones that you feel
And
you
actually, I have a new word for that now, which I got off a different. I work with a social entrepreneur program to support businesses, and they have a concept which I'm now adopting into our professional world, which is collaboration, right? So actually, it is okay to want to, because as I say, I do. I do like a goal. I like high standards, right? I do. I'm not saying we run a very passive ship, but I want us to be aiming for, you know, number one in whatever we decide we're going to do. But this concept of, but that's a, I want that to be a collaborative environment, but it's still okay to be aiming for something and to want to deliver to a high standard. So
Yes.
collaboration is kind of
I
our,
love that word. I have not heard that either. Yeah.
no, I can't claim it, okay, but I'm happy to adopt it. And the other thing for me that's I don't know has always had enough space, um, but it's definitely improving. Is my job as a leader, as I say, is actually to create an environment where my individuals all achieve at their best so that our collective best is better.
Mhm.
Um, and actually, that I try to lean into a lot around what is it that an individual needs to succeed. And maybe that's back to there because I think we're all people, right? We're all individual people. So a lot of time around the, well, how do our people work? What is important, right? What's the individual development needs for one person versus another? Obviously, we have formal technical training that's available to people in my world, as would many professional kind of technician careers. But I find actually the need is more often in the softer skills, right? You know, how to communicate effectively, how to, yeah, how to, you know, stand on a stage and deliver presentations, how to negotiate effectively. All of those sort of things actually are how people succeed.
Mm.
So I certainly with teams I work with, I like to spend time on what are these things that as people allow us to be more effective. Because if we can do that, then all of the technical stuff actually typically takes care of itself easier, right? That's more of a process if you
Yeah.
want to simplify it. But so I think having teams where there's enough time on individuals' personal, whether that's culture or development needs, for me is really important. But as I say, that's also, I think, the best thing I can also do is be very clear on expectations and kind of what it is we're aiming to do. So that's what I go, right. It's my job to have to think about the up here is the North Star. That's where we're aiming to get to. I need to have a plan, but I need to be able to be clear to people, right, here's what that is, and here's what that means in terms of either expectations on a piece of work, like a deliverable, or expectations on, you know, the skills and the style that I like. So I think we often forget that leadership also does need to have a, yeah, you need, well, in my mind, you are bringing people somewhere, right? So it's have where you're going, be clear on the expectations, and spend the time to help people understand that and understand what we all need to get there, right? Because even for me, wherever I'm going will have a different development path for me as
Yeah.
it will for everybody in my team.
Yeah. So that transparency is totally key. We all know where we stand when there's transparency, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
And I know you're a
yeah.
big advocate for coaching and you've had coaches yourself.
Hmm.
And what I loved when we were chatting was you said, I ensure I have a budget every year for coaching. And like you would
Yep.
encourage other or challenge other leaders that don't necessarily have that. So talk to us a bit about that and what coaching has done for you in your professional and personal life.
Yeah. So I say, I think it's hugely important we create space. We ask a lot of people, and I think in return, we need to help them actually deliver on that. So yeah, one of the first things when I finally was able to get my own budgets and not have to constantly ask somebody else for money was, right, I want budgets for personal development. And some of that obviously is, it's not all coaching. We use other tools and techniques, but definitely I allocate some of that to coaching. And that's because I felt hugely different having gone through my first coaching kind of experience. So, and it's probably going to spark another point we discussed. It was funny. I felt like coaching was a amazingly kind of selfish space to be able to work through what's going on for you. Like, why am I thinking that? Why am I feeling that? It's like your own personal therapy in some ways, but I find in a helpful manner, right? It was always about finding a way or a path forward. So that's what I've benefited personally and professionally, I guess, for me, because that's where the kind of all your you are who you are, right? So I'd say I benefit both ways whenever I have gone through coaching. And I would say I've probably dipped in and out of it though, right? So that is, maybe you said earlier, right? You see people at different points, right? So there's times when I go, okay, I think I'm going to need a bit of coaching to navigate this, versus there's times when I go, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing for this period of time. Obviously, I'll step back from it because yeah. But so yeah, once I started creating the budget like that, I always, anytime we were in budget discussions across different, I always say to anybody else, make sure you have your development budget, right? Because I think it's easier for us to look at our, expense budgets, marketing budgets, salary, all of the kind of rational corporate business things, but actually making sure people have a development budget is hugely important. And actually, I'm quite transparent about that, which was also interesting for the people I work with. I was quite happy to go out when I took over the team. I've taken over, and I said, okay, I've put in development budget. And everybody was like, oh, wow, we never knew, was there a development budget before? It was never clear what. And I was like, okay, well, no, I have it. I can tell you what, how much it is. I can tell you it has to cover this amount of people. And I have some ideas on how I'm going to use it. So I feel like we should also be quite transparent about that with our teams, so that they know when you're saying we focus on development, maybe back to you earlier, you're not just saying something, you are facilitating a path to actually deliver it as well, right? No point me saying I want to help develop people and then I don't have the means to do it.
Yeah. So. I love that. I love that. And hopefully more people hear it. And
yeah. So anybody who finally gets access to their own budget, or even if you don't, make sure you're fighting for a specific development budget.
Love it. And I've got one eye on time as well. But you spoke to me about how you're personally developing in your own personal life. Tell us about that, because I love this.
Yeah. And isn't it funny? Because I realized I said the word selfish about coaching. And as I was thinking, I thought, oh, yeah, this is what I said to you earlier about my other opportunity where So for I am currently studying part-time, but I am studying architectural history, which clearly has nothing to do with my job. And it came about start of last year. So actually I'd come out of quite a hectic period in work. We'd done some restructuring. So I was honestly feeling like, okay, I'm tired. This sort of saying, I try to manage my energy. I'm a bit more conscious of it. So I wanted to do something. I was like, I want to use my brain again. I want to think again, but I do not want it to be for work. I'm like, I don't want it to be for work. Don't want it to be for home. Like I was like, I feel like I just want something that's for me. And this is where I said to you, I feel like it was quite a selfish kind of motivation, but this is where I kind of go, selfish isn't always bad, right? It's often about protecting yourself. So thankfully I've come to that realization through coaching as well. So yeah, I signed up to do a course in architectural history. As I said, I probably could have done a light touch version, but that's not me. I tend to be a bit all in. So I'm now in my second year. Well, I've just headed into my second year. But yeah, it's good fun, and it is a space. It is a space which kind of disconnects me from everything else, right? And that's what I enjoy about it. Don't enjoy having to do assignments, but I do love I do love the space to learn and to think about something that's not family, not like work, not normal day-to-day life, right? So it's kind of my, yeah, it's my release valve, or whatever way you want to do it.
I I absolutely love that, and I feel like we do need to reclaim this word selfish, because
Mm,
the opposite of selfish is like selfless. And as we were talking earlier, like we want to be our whole selves. We don't want to be less of ourselves. So I'm here for the selfish. Like let's reclaim the word. Let's
yeah.
like words actually in and of themselves have no meaning. We give them meaning. So we
Mm.
made the word mean it's a bad thing to be selfish. Um, so I love that you're being selfish and doing something for yourself. And I hope more people, I think some people just get so like lost in their work and the family and everyone else that they don't know actually what they would do. So it's like when you get that opportunity to come up for air and just like sink into what it is that you'd really love to do, it just like, yeah, see what comes forth. Like, and something will come up that you go, oh, yeah, I always had a passion for that thing. I've just lost it along the way. So, how do I get to bring it back into my life? And like you said, it's like taking that month off. It gives you that break from the constant thought process around work and about everyone else, and allows you to your brain just to settle on something a little bit more creative, or where you need to put a bit more different thought in it. Use your brain differently.
You
So
should, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's the using your brain differently, right? It's yeah. Whilst it can be tiring, it's also energizing because it is a
Mm.
different part of your brain, which
And it's because
is
you want to be doing it. Like it's something you actually want to be doing. So yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. What's next for you? Are you kind of just, are you happy where
Hmm.
you're at, or do you see yourself? Like, what does success look like for you? Let me ask you that question, because that's a real big topic for me at the moment in terms of like how success shifts over our lifetime.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think I mentioned earlier, I've never been one to be super planned. So I don't have a very clear, right, I want this. And definitely for me, it's never been about, I want that role or I want this. So it's not been about kind of the corporate ladder. Um, but success for me more generally is, right, happy, healthy, and doing something that I feel like it makes a difference, right? So they're the sort of things I kind of sense check. And as I was saying to somebody earlier, they're going, but why haven't you moved, or why have you always been in the same industry, or you're a long time at the same company? I guess currently I'm in a very luxurious position of actually what we do as an insurance industry makes a difference, right? So I honestly believe and particularly with life and health claims and underwriting, we help people when stuff happens to them, right? So I feel it kind of helps my personal value system going, right? I choose to work in a corporate world, which doesn't always align to my values, but actually what I do in this corporate world does. So for me, that helps me go, okay, I feel like I'm making a difference. Equally with the people I work with, I could only ever work either for or with people that I feel like, okay, we all want to do something. We all want to make a difference. And actually we are trying to do something different. So whilst those sort of things happen, I go, okay, this is success, right? You're happy, healthy, and feel like you're having an impact or you're making a difference. I think in terms of what's next would be, yeah. So I am the type of person who will or won't work, well under certain individuals or certain styles. So I'm not wedded. I'm lucky. I feel like I'm quite lucky. I'm not wedded to, I have to stay here till retirement because I have to do X. So maybe that's something for me as well, which is a version of success. So the ability to maintain choice and freedom with that choice for me I go, man, tick, 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 right? So because
Yeah.
then it is a okay. I'm here because I want to be
Yeah.
here, not because I have to be here. So what's next? Yeah, I always go, I don't really know because it'll be when something in those dimensions changes, I'll go, okay, so what is next? But it would equally have to fulfill similar dimensions. I'd need to be able to work with people and for people where I feel like, okay, we're doing something. We have a goal. It's meaningful. It's going to matter. Um, and actually I can, I have a role to play in it. That's kind of the thing for me if I'm thinking about jobs.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you, Claire. I think we'll wrap that up there on that little note. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your wisdom with us and just your view on life, your perspective. It's like it's really refreshing. So thank you so much for coming on the show and being my guest.
Well, thank you for inviting me and for not making it as scary as I said it would have been in my head. So, yeah, much appreciated.
Well, you're so welcome. And for everyone tuning in, thanks for being here again. And until next week, take care.